Good Friday morning. I'm Jerry Miller. Welcome to Real Talk. This is an insider's guide to real estate across Charlottesville, Albemarle County, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world. We are live on the I Love CVille Network, powered by the Yes Team Realtors. Keith and Yonna Smith, undoubtedly trusted partners in the real estate game. Today's program, a fantastic one lined up for you as Keith Davis joins us, the principal broker at Nest Realty Group, one of the partners at a thriving real estate firm. You know what, I'm going to say across the eastern seaboard.
Through the Mid-Atlantic right now.
Through the Mid-Atlantic. We're going to get to that evolution here in a matter of moments. Before we do, Judah, why don't we start with the two-shot so we can welcome the Dapper Don himself. I know you love that moniker. Keith Smith to the show. Good morning, my friend.
Yeah, we have to change that. Okay?
You love that moniker.
No, we
the
don't.
The Brooklyn man I know loves that moniker.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, man. So as always, we try to bring trusted advisors and rock stars on, and as you were doing your opening monologue, I was just thinking it's every once in a while I'll get like a text from somebody that's supposed to go to Keith Davis.
It's not every once in a while. It is
a lot of
time.
Yeah, it's true, right? And then I'm like, hold it. I don't think I'm doing that deal, am I? And I go, Yonna, are we doing this?
Do you ever get this text? I have a client for you. Can you meet with me? And you're like, hell yes, let's do it.
It's a $10 million deal, and hey,
nice.
It's usually a client who actually did work with me at one time and works with Keith now, and it is hilarious. It's a probably about once a month we get one that goes back and forth. So. I'm at the age that I have to actually wear glasses to read my phone now, and sometimes I don't do that, and I end up responding, and then the agent on the other side or whatever goes, I don't think this was meant for you. So we do this quite regularly, so we'll have to keep track of the Keiths here.
That's going to be my hardest situation for Friday, keeping track of the Keiths. Why don't we humanize, localize, and personalize you before we talk shop?
Sure.
What makes you tick, your passions, your hobbies, and your interests?
Honestly, it's my work life is the majority of my time. My kids are the majority of my thoughts, and my wife is fitting in very nicely in terms of being able to be a part of all of that. And it is, I spend all my time either in the real estate office or on a pool deck and reffing swim meets throughout the East Coast. So. That's where I am. Last night I was at the Ben Hare, which I'm going to give a plug for the Ben Hare real quick, if you don't mind, Jerry.
Please.
It's a nonprofit group that was started by a gentleman named Gordon Hare, who lost his son in a car accident, who was a local swimmer, and this is an organization that raises money to teach kids to swim and wants to make sure that all of Charlottesville is a swim-proofed community. So fantastic thing, and they had their fundraiser meet last night with, I think, 12 schools across Central Virginia. So great organization, but that's where I spend my time.
Swimming.
Yeah, so, this is why I love this show, and this is why I love bringing guests like Keith. We've known each other for a very long time, and I learned something new every time we open this up with a question. I did not realize that you were a swim ref. Now,
I could have worn my little white shirt and blue shorts if you had wanted to, Keith.
So,
we could have had fun.
Well...
Are you going to leave that alone, or are you going to touch
throwing
that?
them off early in the day?
You had me up into the shorts. After that, I'm not so sure I want to see that. But our youngest daughter, who's just watching, who's out in Seattle, thank you, Yvonne, for watching, is a former D1 swimmer.
Awesome. Where was that?
Sprinter. Excuse me?
Where was she swimming?
So she swam at Radford.
Yep.
And so she... I used to, we were just talking about this the other day, I used to wake up at dark 30 in the morning, take her to Fort Union Military Academy at 5:30 every morning to swim and all that stuff. So I used to, I was like the head timer when she was swimming, and I'll tell this quick story all the time. So this is like a typical me story, New Yorker story. So, as you know, the head timer would take the timers in a separate room and go through this whole speech on how this works. And every time I did it, and I would say, and for $100 I can shave off this second, this $200 this.
And someone did offer?
And so as soon as they offered, I said, you're off. They just never figured it out. But some parent would actually go, really? Can I do that? And I go, no, you're done. Yeah. You're out. So that's cool. Thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's welcome Ray Cadell to the show. Aaron Manis, hello. Regina Applaw, hello. Ray, thank you for sharing the program. You know what? I really appreciate the guests that come on the program because they're passionate about the community and want to better the community. Talk to us about Charlottesville and Central Virginia and what you love about this area.
So my wife and I moved here in '96, so going on 24 years this year. We've been here. She was a UVA grad. We both grew up in Richmond, and when we had the opportunity to come back, I actually came back to join S&L Securities when it was a firm of less than 100 people and in its early infancy stages, which was a great reason to come here. And this is a community that just. It supports entrepreneur mentalities. It is a town that really loves its own, right? We were talking about just, companies like Bodos that just have, kind of strangleholds on all of our hearts, and Marie Bett and these other places that are just awesome local. And we're a place that just supports who we are and who our community members are. And I think it's a fantastic place to operate for business, great place to raise kids. So love being here.
Before we went on air, we were talking bagels, and as the New Yorker, I really kept my mouth shut because that's a hard conversation to have with a New
Yorker. My wife
Yorker.
says the same. She's a New Yorker, as you know.
Yeah. So literally, when I go back home, people will ask for Bodos to come back.
Yeah.
People back home in Brooklyn actually like Bodos better than Brooklyn bagels. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's do this. We have someone of your, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit, of your intellect and your vision on the show. We'll get out of your way and start with an open-ended question.
Sure.
We're heading into 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants to know predictions for how the market's going to fare.
Yeah, honestly, Jerry, I think I spend so much time talking to agents, talking to clients, talking to friends about this, and as does Keith. And I think we're all operating in this market right now. We have so much political uncertainty that there's also a certain amount of automatic economic uncertainty that goes with it. But I do believe right now is every single indicator that we've got says we're in a positive upswing time right now. Whether you're looking at equity markets and the way that companies are being invested in, and you're looking at where the Dow is, where the S&P is, things are flying. If you're looking at unemployment, we are at a crazy rate. The 2.7 I think was the last rate for the state, and even lower for the area of Charlottesville. But the one thing that's really changed in this entirety is that right now you have real job growth in terms of wages, and that is a big difference from where we've been from the recovery of the last decade, and we're finally seeing those wages come up, and that is bringing more parity to some of the mortgage rates and the opportunity to purchase. Yes, we've had increases in home prices, and I think we're going to continue to see them, but they've been moderate and sustainable. We're not seeing the 2004-05 crazy run-ups of 10-12%. We're seeing in the 3% ranges on a kind of regular basis, and I think over the last year, probably a little bit lower than that. The early numbers are that we've pulled, and I don't know how far Keith has gotten into it, but across all MSA, we're seeing the median price is up just about 1% over the past year. But a lot of that has to do with balance of where the products are, where the homes are selling. But we're definitely in a positive upswing in almost every indicator. I mean, I think there's not a whole lot that says look out. Consumer confidence, which is when I talk to our agents and I say if there are three things you can look at, it's consumer confidence, it's interest rates, and it's unemployment.
Yeah.
And those are the three big ones. And unemployment we just talked about is crazy low. Interest rates, despite the fact that every year for the past 4 or 5 years we've said expect to see a 100 basis point rise in the interest rates, we haven't seen 50 basis points over the course of any year.
Cheap money.
It is very, I mean, it's, we say historically low. It feels, the only fear I have about interest rates is right now we've had them at this rate for so many years that now people are thinking 4.5 is
the
high.
norm.
And I look back at my parents who bought a house in '73 at 7.25%, and it never ever reached that rate again until mid '90s. So it's.
I can tell you in 1988 I paid 18%.
Yeah.
For a $100,000 loan. I was happy to get it.
Right, and I think if I remember when I bought my first, it was 7.875, but it was a 7-year ARM. It wasn't, it was still it was a declining rate environment, and we've been here now for the last decade, and
I think that in itself scares people.
Yeah.
Right, that it's been this nice, gentle climb. It has not been the run up like you mentioned,
Right.
Which I feel great about. And I think you and I are on the same page as far as what I project the market to move forward to. And we talked about this on last Friday with Tom and Quentin. You know, one stat that I tend to follow the most is, and the three that you outlined is exactly the three you should be following, but I tend to follow unemployment a little bit closer. And, you know, technically, I think depending on which economist you speak to, it's 6% is kind of full employment. We're like below, like
We're half of
100%
that.
below that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, below 3.
Yeah. So there's never been a recession when we have not had full unemployment. And I've done a lot of research since the last show, and nobody's corrected me. I don't think one can point to that. I may be wrong. So that's something I track. I think, and I'd love Keith's feedback on this, I really think, you know, it's like everybody's talking about, it's an inventory problem. I was crunching numbers this morning.
No supply.
There's just nothing to buy.
Right.
And I don't know what is going to happen or what we need to do as a industry or what influence one can have on that to get that needle to move a little bit. And I'd love your opinion.
Well, I mean,
that.
I think, you know, if you look just at the city of Charlottesville alone, last year sales were down about 7% for 2019, and that drop is, you know, you talk to any agent who has clients looking for houses, it has nothing to do with a lack of buyer interest. It has nothing to do with inability to obtain financing. It has nothing to do with, you know, fear of the future. It has to do entirely with the fact that no one can find what they want to find, and they're making multiple offers on multiple properties before they're able to capture one. And I think that is, it's definitely the biggest mind shift in terms of agent mindset of how they're approaching the sale process or the purchase process. And it's changing the way sellers are wanting to list their homes and the way that we're all dealing with you know, contract negotiations. It's a tight market, and has been. And if you're pricing it appropriately, there are buyers out there for your house, and that's it's a great thing. But it also it does get kind of scary because it forces the prices up at a higher clip than you would want to see.
Let me throw this topic out there. A seller, someone who owns a piece of property, why, if the supply is so low yet the demand is so high, why are we not seeing more sellers listing their homes, talking with trusted advisors, getting their home on the market? Now's the time to do it with not a lot of competition out there. What is with the mindset of the homeowner?
They don't know where to go.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Why? I mean, there's a fear factor. Why would I list my home if I don't know that I'm going to be able to find another house?
That's exactly right.
And that's a scary. You know, you don't want to make the sale and then wait 9 months and be in a rental place while you're trying to make the next move. But if you attempt to do an offer, and Keith, I don't know if this is your experience, but if you make an offer that's contingent upon the sale of your home, you're going to be beat out by somebody else. So there's this double-edged sword of, it's difficult to move, and so you never put your house on the market.
Okay, the next follow-up question then is, how does the association manage that dilemma?
Meaning car?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really not their role.
Okay.
Their role is more to help the professionalism of the agents.
Okay.
You know, that's market driven. They don't play a role in that. They provide tools, and Keith may jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but they provide the tools and help the edge and the infrastructure on that. It's not their role to guide the market or be involved in that, but they provide the tools so you can wake up at 5:30 in the morning and dig in some numbers. That's kind of how they, I don't like the word influence, but that's how they could participate. Maybe a better choice of words. But Keith was spot on. Absolutely. So you almost have to have two conversations with a client nowadays. And in the old days, if you were going to do a listing, right, you're really just kind of focusing on the listing end of it. But you have to have a second conversation because you have to help them figure out where they're going to go. And some of it is outside the state, right? Outside the region. I just got a phone call the other day from a client moving in out of Seattle, working for Boeing. And so, you know, they're in the same situation, right? They don't want to sell their house because they can't buy something here because they're working on jobs at UVA. And so we're trying to help them out there and help them out here. So as Keith was speaking, it's something we talk about on the show all the time. This is really the market. You need a trusted advisor. You need an agent that really knows what they're doing, working for a firm like Nest or Roy Wheeler or any of the other firms that
Logan
are
Foster watching,
Logan Foster,
Real Estate 3 watching.
Real Estate 3, all these reputable firms that have some great agents to help you navigate this thing, because it's not like it used to be, right? It's hard to make a deal get to the finish line. Is that a fair statement?
No, I agree entirely. It is a very different, and it also really depends on the price point you're looking at, right?
Yeah.
So we do, it's easy to simplify and say the whole market is one thing. It's not, right? I mean, the city of Charlottesville sales may be down, the prices may be up significantly. That's not quite the same in some of the surrounding counties. And it's definitely not the case in some of the luxury market. There's more than enough inventory in the $1 million+ area to last for a while. But I think it does. If the entry level person can't buy a house and can't find their place, then the move up market just gets stalled. And this is a very different problem we had from 2009-10, when buyers were coming into Charlottesville having gotten a new job, and they have the income, they have the capacity to borrow, but they've been unable to sell a house in another location, and that was what was stopping the sales. This is ready, willing, able buyers, ready, willing, and able financial market, and there's just not homes to purchase. So
my conversation about real estate, and I'm a Marine, and I try to keep things really simple.
Yeah.
Is 5 things, right? It's location, price, features, condition, and then the last item, which we've completely worked through: does the person selling the house owe more on it than the market's prepared to buy? AKA short sales, right? So we've kind of vetted our way through that. That doesn't mean that they don't.
They're still out there,
They're
but
still
they're
out
few
there.
and far between.
But
Sure.
it wasn't every other phone call back in the day, right? So, but Keith's spot on. There's location, and there's micro locations within micro locations, right? So Crozet is an example, right? I've got a couple of clients who are trying to find something that want to be in Crozet, right? Want to be in a specific thing, want specific features and conditions at a certain price point, and it just doesn't exist.
Right.
And then now we are having this discussion of this term that I'm not a huge fan of, but it's descriptive of the circumstances.
Can I see? Drive till you qualify?
There you go.
Is it weird that we
have that?
drive till you qualify?
Yeah,
we finish each other's sentences. We do this too much.
It's a little scary.
It's a little scary. Your daughters are a little freaked out.
My daughters are definitely freaked out.
They're watching right now.
She says, "What is this with this man crush you guys got?"
Talk to us about that, though. You're absolutely right. We're seeing that with Waynesboro. We're seeing that with Fluvanna.
Sure.
Green.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's just a natural migration, and maybe, again, that's a poor choice of words, but it's a natural result of the lack of inventory, right? So if I could find what I wanted for this particular buyer in and around Crozet Central, right, which I can't, then we're now, when this show is over, we're going to be looking outside of that area, and it's just a matter of the fact, and we maybe a little bit later we'll get into my passion of affordable housing and all that kind of great stuff, but just as general market terms, you as an agent, as a brokerage, you can't be, it used to be back in the day one brokers can maybe just handle one area or something like that. You need to be an expert in all the MSA, all the 6 jurisdictions or more around that. Any feedback on that, Keith?
I mean, I don't disagree with any of that. I think it is, clients come to the table with a list of what they're willing to compromise and what they're not willing to compromise on. And the tighter the market, the more that list of willing to compromises has to grow in order to find a house. And sometimes it's the distance to travel, sometimes it's the size of a house, sometimes it's the age of a property or the condition of a property. But certainly the ability to meet your wish list 100% is very difficult right now. And I think Keith said the big thing, which is affordable housing. And I think for me, affordable housing goes beyond simply equitable housing within our community and making it affordable to everyone. It's providing the housing for each person at each stage that's affordable within their group. So I'm not talking just about 80% of median income. This is about the general public having the houses that they need. And I think one of the you ask what can the association do. I think the association works very closely with a gentleman by the name of Neil Williamson, who I have incredible respect for, the Free Enterprise Forum. Neil is our advocate for within the public arena, and you look at. I'll throw out a project that Keith and I have both been involved in, Lachlan Hill, which is just north of downtown. This is a project that went through the county zoning pretty easily, and then the city became, started putting up roadblocks, if you will, of different changes they wanted to the process that were not necessarily all lined up with their comp plan, that took, for various reasons, and I'm not going to throw blame, but took over 2 years to get the actual approval from the filing to approval. And that meant that there are 150 lots in the city that were 2 years behind on their delivery date. And that's an enormous amount of equity that's being tied up into projects that could be delivering land that charges, the developer needs to make more in order to make it, which makes the lots more expensive, which makes the builders have to build bigger houses to be able to build on them, and that drives up that affordability question. So if you want to know what can be done on the affordability, it's to be able to, right now there's a senator within the Virginia State Senate who's introduced legislation to that would require all localities in any residential district to allow ADUs or accessory dwelling units. This is an attempt to provide instantly an opportunity for homeowners to be able to introduce backyard granny flats, if you will, or
cottages.
Cottage apartments. And this is a way to get affordable housing into our community. This is a way to double, in essence, the amount of land development we already have, and to give homeowners the opportunity to utilize their property to help other people, and to be able to provide income for themselves, and to be able to provide housing for those of lesser incomes. And it just makes sense. And I think it doesn't say that everyone has to build a duplex in their backyard, but it does allow for upzoning in a very statewide manner that would give us more affordable housing. It's been done in Oregon, has already passed it through. I know you guys have talked about it briefly. This is the kind of thinking that we need, though, in order to have massive change, right? So over the recession, the Great Recession, we had a lot of builders that went out of business, a lot of developers that went out of business. There was a halt in construction. We saw prices on materials start dropping, came back down, and they've all gone back up to their period. But the problem is that for 5-6 years, we had complete under construction within the marketplace, right? So it has taken, and it will continue to take, many years for us to actually build up the number of housing stock for the people who are looking for housing in our area. And that's leading to our inventory issues. This is not an overnight solution, but there are ways that the city and the county can address it. We could do upzoning. We could do other things that would allow. We could start working with our developers in a more rapid movement to be able to provide the land. And I think so many people look around and they say, "Wow, we already have too many houses." That's great until you want to move and you can't find one. And we need to be increasing that stock across the region.
Man, I've been squirming in my seat the
He's
whole
on
time.
point.
First of all, great answer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, because as you know, that's my passion, right? And I sit on, as my wife would say, probably way too many boards and commissions.
Volaholic.
I'm a volaholic. Just came back from trips out in Seattle and Portland. And just to add a little bit about the ADU thing, actually that legislation that's following through is to actually remove or basically spot zone, taking away single-family detached and allow them to go up to 4. It's got a bit of an uphill battle. We talked about this in the last show. Been going back and forth with Seattle and Oregon, working on how to transition that, because one of the struggles is it's a great idea, great concept, which I'm totally in support of, but it doesn't. They're struggling with the building side of it, right? So if I take a single-family detached lot and I'm doing a quad on it, now I've got 2-hour firewalls around, and that raises costs. And how do we get past the building codes? So the good news is those discussions are happening. I can tell you, at least at Albemarle County in Charlottesville, through my involvement with different groups, we are actively looking at trying to work through these things. So I want to at least get across the table that this is being worked on. In my opinion, way too slow, right? But
We're a ways away from this.
We're a ways away from this.
Yeah.
You were talking about Lachlan Hill, and
You know that one well.
I know that one well because my sister lives there.
Family.
That family there. But my mind went to Nassau Street, this land trust I'm on, right?
Yeah.
And, as I've been traveling a little bit in December, and of all the projects we've got going on, my wife and I, the only one that I had phone calls from was that project because of issues with the city. We are 2 to 2.5 years behind on the project. And I had a conversation yesterday with a couple of folks at the city to let them clearly understand we could have delivered these units about $190,000. We are now at $215,000, and it's solely out of
Time.
well, it's time and costs, and we had to refinance the loans a couple of times. It's just again, not pointing fingers or anything like that, because we want to be solution based, right? But
So you're talking a 12.5% increase in price
From carrying cost.
from carrying costs.
quick carrying costs.
That's exactly what Keith Woodard went through on Water Street.
Yeah. So the good news is, maybe my wife would not be happy to hear this.
She's
but-
watching. Be careful.
Oh, good. Great. Just in future, tell me this before.
She watches every show.
Before I open up my mouth, would you please tell me?
She
So-
watches every. You know
you constantly get me into trouble.
I
you know?
try not to.
It's all your fault.
It is my fault. I'm
Totally
sorry,
your fault.
Yonna.
Totally your fault. But the only way we can fix these things is to engage, right?
Right.
Engage.
This.
This is it. Engage. Sit down with folks. So, the good news is the city, based on some conversations I've been having, really want to try to figure out how to fix this. And, my answer to them is very clearly, frankly, I don't need money. Money is easy. We can find money. What I can't fix or what I can't find is process, right? That process needs to be. And so one of the things we learned out in Oregon, Portland in particular, is this new thing called green taping. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later shows and bring some experts on that do that. But in essence, it's what Keith has been trying to say is, fast track this, but not missing steps, right? Not overstepping something that we shouldn't be doing. It's just fast
Making
track.
the bureaucracy more efficient.
Correct, and everybody wins, right? And so the city, in my opinion, that would be something they could tackle, right? There you go.
Yeah.
Good topic right here. Why don't we thank some sponsors? We'll give some love to Pearl Certification.
Yeah.
A fantastic tool to build a brand or to market your property. The efficiency of the home, Keith Smith.
So we love Pearl, and I have to give a shout out to Greg Slater because if it wasn't for Greg Slater, Pearl wouldn't be here.
No.
Right, and we would not be having the conversations. We use them almost exclusively on all our listings. You're smiling. That cannot be good.
Yonna says, be nice and behave. Keith, I love Yonna so much to put up with you.
So the people know I can't see what's on his screen. And when he starts smiling and getting red, I get a little nervous.
Jessica Russo, your colleague, is watching. Georgia Lindsay's watching. Both those rock stars have been on this program. Christopher Eagle, hello. I count 8 real estate firms watching the program right now. Keith Davis.
There you go.
Keith Davis, jump in here. Anywhere you want to go.
Anywhere we want to go. I mean, I think in terms of I will speak just to Greg and to Pearl. I think this is one of the trends, and we're talking about just predictions of 2020. The efficiency of homes and the drive till you can afford it. I'm going to blend those two topics if we can for a second, because I had a client a long time ago who said, I can't afford anything until I go out to X community. And we sat down and we went through, okay, if you're going to add 22 miles to your trip each direction.
You're going to lose the money, wear and tear on your car, your time, your gas.
You're a whole lot better off living in a smaller, cheaper place close to your
but what you did, if you don't want me jumping in, what you did is an ROI. Right?
But Pearl helps you do that, right?
That's
I mean,
exactly
this is it puts out in the very front for any purchaser, and the seller can document what the advantages are of their home, and it gives us the opportunity to show real value, not just in comfort, but in real ownership cost. And I think it's Greg has done an amazing job kind of spearheading that in terms of.
Let's get too carried away. His head's big enough.
Someone
His
tag
head's
Greg
big
Slater.
enough as it is.
Someone get Greg Slater in the mix over here. That's why I think it would be absolutely, and you said, I believe, on a board about this, if we had more, and I'm not knocking Charlottesville area Transit. Okay. But if we had more robust and reliable transit across Central Virginia in totality, where people can get on a bus or some kind of transportation from Waynesboro, Fluvanna, or Greene, or Louisa, and then come to the epicenter of employment, Charlottesville, that's going to make housing so much affordable across the board.
So I'll continue to, as long as I've got this mic in front of me, I will continue to constantly say this. You cannot separate the two. You cannot separate housing, affordable housing, whatever moniker you want to put on it, and transportation. If it's mass transportation or road infrastructure or whatever it is, they have to run concurrently because, as Keith was outlining, when you sit down with a client, you do your ROI, return on investment, and say, okay, we may be saving a few bucks out that, but this is what you're spending on your vehicle versus, hey, you spend a little bit more money here in Charlottesville and you can bike to work.
Yeah.
Literally, this client that we're showing around they work at UVA and they want, eventually, I think we're going to be able to get them up a little bit because we're going to have to educate them, and they might end up buying someplace they can bike to work.
Right.
That's kind of where I think that's going to go. But again, you need a trusted advisor. You need somebody that really understands this market and how to articulate it like Keith is doing.
It's been many years since I read the report, so I wish I could remember if it was the EPA that had funded it or where it started, but it was a look at the environmental friendliness of housing. And what they found was if you lived in a 1952 house in a city center that had access where you could use bicycle or mass transit as your primary transportation unit, or if you bought a LEED certified home 20 miles from your city center, that living in the 1952 home without any, with poor insulation, with other things, actually had a lower carbon footprint than living out in the country.
Wow.
Because
That's
the majority,
knowledge.
the majority of our kind of damage to the environment we're doing is with our vehicles, right? Sure. And so the less vehicle miles you travel, the better off you can be. And I think there are a lot of people who buy in a neighborhood that they want to have as walkable. Downtown Belmont, they do walk for a lot of stuff. Whether they walk and bike for every day of work, I'm not going to
Probably not.
Right, yeah. But some certainly do, and I know plenty of people who live in the city who use their bike as their main unit. But just even having backups to be along bus routes, backups to be able to walk to places if you need to, and I think it's hugely important, and we're seeing it more and more with our buyers, and less people who are saying I need 2.5 acres and I'd rather be in a tighter community. It's a real shift of philosophy, and this is not a Charlottesville thing. This is everywhere in the country that we're reading about it.
Well, thank Michael Guthrie for being a part of the show, Roger Voisinay, Sarah Hill-Buczynski watching, Roy Wheeler Realty Company, a part of the show.
Michael's going to sit in that seat next Friday, and the man, the myth, the legend is going to be sharing his thoughts on this very topic. I was thinking on the way coming in about Michael. We're fortunate that we work together. And Keith may jump in on this. I don't think I've ever met a real estate agent or broker that never had nothing but positive things to say about Michael. I think if somebody talks about me on the side, they may have a few negative comments to say, but I've never ever had anybody say that. And that's a lot of value, and we love him to death, and he's enjoying the sunshine at the moment. So
I'm looking forward to next week's program. How about this? And we get this topic coming up a lot. I can't wait to get your take, Keith Davis. New construction. New construction really coming into the market strong. We're certainly seeing it on the south side of Charlottesville. We're seeing it in Greene with Ryan Holmes. New construction, first start open-ended, and then I'll get into some specific topics.
Yeah. So, I think if you go back 15 years and look at new construction in Charlottesville, we've dramatically changed a lot of items about it. So, I'll start back in 2010 or thereabouts. We did a study that looked at the firms that were building houses in 2005 versus 2010. And at that point, that was the shift when Ryan Holmes entered our marketplace. That was when Piedmont Realty became Stanley Martin. Well, I guess that wasn't until about 2012, 13. But we started seeing kind of the rise of the national home builder in our market. With several of the projects that are going to be along 29 North, we're going to see more and more national builders. And they've entered the workplace. I mean, they've entered this community. That's not to be, discounted at all. But I think what you're seeing in the last few years that's fascinating is the rise now of the local home builder again. And you're seeing more and more firms. I was talking with one individual who is about to relaunch a builder that had been involved in residential and then got out and was doing commercial and is now coming back into the residential. You're seeing the local firms wanting to get back in, and there are many in this area, too many really to call out by name, that are doing high quality, either pre-solds or spec homes that are doing something that's a little bit, that's just a unique product for our marketplace. And I think they're serving a very different community. There are some that are looking and purely are price-based, some that are looking at architectural style-based. There are some who are going to be, there's something in each of these markets, in the market for each of the buyers. But I think the one thing that we haven't talked about that I think new construction is going to drive or be driven by is going to be different localities' ability to manage the education system around it. So we'll take, the city of Charlottesville has had excess capacity in their schools for a number of years, so we can continue adding new housing in the city without having massive impact on that. They still allow for out of district students to pay to come to the schools because we have empty seats, and that's a better use of those asset allocations. But within Albemarle County, we're seeing, right now Albemarle High School has multiple modular units outside the building because we're at capacities, and many of the elementary schools are. We've got to have a very intentional discussion not at the board of the school board level, but at the board of supervisors level about where those assets are going to go and how we're going to manage the student population in Albemarle County, because we are at and above capacity.
You're basically saying if we increase density,
we keep building
in
houses
Albemarle,
and don't do anything about
what's going to happen to the roads, schools? Do we have enough people to service the community?
Absolutely. I mean, we do, but the question is, how are you going to allocate it, and how are you going to plan for it? So, for instance, there is a continued, we've had these three growth areas of Crozet and Pantops and 29 North that have been established for years, and we're now, because of the opening of the John Warner Parkway, everything along Rio Road got zoned up, and we've had so much development over the past years in that area, and we'll see it continue along 29 North. But what that means is the school districts along 29 North needed to be boosted as well, and that hasn't happened. So the school board has been tasked with rezoning and redistricting, which the school board said, we're not, 3 years ago we went through this, and the school board came back and said, we're not going to change anything. We're going to have overpopulation of the schools until the board of supervisors deals with it.
Yeah, so there's our third one, education.
Yeah.
Right?
And it drives so many buyer decisions.
Sarah Hill Buczynski says this is happening in Crozet for sure. The positive of this, though, if you do get more density, sure, it's going to have an impact on infrastructure like schools and roads, but you do get more tax revenue to help combat that impact.
So it is a delicate tightrope to walk.
That's why you guys play such an important role in the community.
Well, it's funny you should say that because, I was thinking as Keith was talking, we mentioned this on a couple of shows before, and we mentioned it last show. I mean, the three biggies, right? Right? Clothing, food,
shelter.
And shelter. And I mean, that's what we do. And we take what we do very seriously on trying to fit that role and helping people get in there. But I want to go backwards a little bit to the small builder and the new construction thing. We talked about that last week. You are totally spot on. The rise of the small to medium builder, which is a great thing. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, because this is my DNA. Ultimately, what happened in the Great Depression, because I don't think it was a recession, at least from my personal experience. What happened was the big guys start gobbling up land. Right? Mm-hmm. So now you have the big guys and you have a conversation with Jerry and say, I want to spend a little extra money. I want to build something, but there's no lot inventory for Jerry to go build on. Mm-hmm. So it becomes a struggle for Jerry to get Keith's house built. Hey, I'll spend an extra $100,000 or whatever, and I want it specific. To my requirements. It's just hard to find, but they're coming back in. We're seeing this on our end. We got a bunch of sales on small to medium-sized builder. John Kerber's one
of our clients.
One of your clients. Yeah. Love him to death.
Dominion Custom Homes.
One of your clients, Bramante Homes, built my sister's house in Lachlan Hill. Small builder, medium-sized builder. Was a freaking awesome experience. So that's encouraging, but it's just there's a lack of inventory, and you were spot on. These jurisdictions have a lot to tackle, but they've got to create more inventory. So you're going to start seeing. I think you're going to start seeing some changes. I mentioned this in the show before, back on affordable housing. When you have folks at Louisa County reaching out to me and saying, we want to help, we want to provide land, that's huge.
Yeah. Is that for the land trust?
For the land trust, correct. That's over 3 decades of working with them. They've never even wanted to say the word housing. Nevertheless, say, hey, what can we do to help? So that's kind of mimics or echoes what you're trying to say on that.
Let me get some comments in from viewers. This is from Roger Voisinay of Remax. This is a very good comment. This is in regards to what Keith Davis was talking about. $250 a month per person to commute 25 to 30 minutes from Charlottesville. This equals $52,000 of a mortgage payment. So a home $50K more in town is equal to $150K less outside of Albemarle on a monthly payment. You don't live with the price, you live with the monthly payment.
Absolutely. And and Roger, thank you for calculating it, because I can't do it while we're on air, but that number doesn't surprise me a whole bunch. I will say I had a client years ago who said they wanted to move to the county to avoid the high taxes of the city. And we realized that, based upon the extra mileage that was going to be on the car, literally he would have had to spend, it was a gross percentage difference in order to make that small difference of taxes matter. And I think people look at these at small snippets and go, that's a reason to move, or, I can get something bigger for being out in the county. And Roger's absolutely right. At $250 a month, that's a lot of extra house that you can afford to buy right now.
Not even including the impact to the world.
Right.
Our kids are going to suffer from.
Yeah.
Michael Guthrie says this for you. Interesting that new home construction medium sales prices have decreased from $429K to $326K. It shows the impact of lower priced homes in Greene and Fluvanna.
Thank you, Michael. Literally, that was the data I pulled up this morning. So my first comment is, you're on vacation, Michael, so stop crunching numbers.
He loves this stuff.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's 100% right. So it kind of goes into what we've been talking about. There's a little bit of an equilibrium going on, which is a good thing. But Jerry asks me this question all the time on the show, and I really want to bounce this past you. He constantly asks me this question, and I squirm in my seat when he asks me. So what do you think you know the question,
Yes,
right?
I do.
So what is in your opinion, the next kind of hot market where, kind of like, as you ask it, the Crozet.
Like the area? Oh,
What's the next
area.
Crozet?
Yeah.
That's basically what the question is. Whether it's Greene, Fluvanna, Waynesboro.
So Crozet is a complete, I will say Crozet is a different kind of a beast, because
Sure.
Crozet is not a hot market because its location already had the
Well, it's because of the schools.
Well, in other words, if we look in the city of Charlottesville, we look at all the different regions within the city. Belmont took off because of its already great proximity to downtown. It's already, there was a little bit of intermingled zoning, so we've had restaurants within. There's something special about Belmont. Crozet became a hot spot because of the fact that the county said, we're going to allow zoning increases here. We're going to allow building to go on. And it's near 64, so you have 250 and 64s as your arteries into town. And so that really was a governmentally determined great place to be. And that is allowed, and I'm not trying to discount Crozet at all. Crozet is an amazing community that now has its own, and with the Barnes Lumberyard, redevelopment, it's going to be even greater. It's always had the Crozet Pizza downtown section, but with the Old Trail downtown, it's a booming area, right? And there are lots of reasons to be there. So I think the question that you're asking is, which of the counties are
I'm
going
a
to
businessman. Where can you make some money?
So
which of the counties are going to go after it? I think
jump.
all of them would love to be.
Let me try to ask the question a little bit differently. So what location kind of has as much of those pieces of the puzzle together that you think will grow?
We can get some ROI.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, I have my opinion of it. I was just curious what you might think.
I think, as when you look at Greene County, Albemarle's or I don't know if it's VDOT or Albemarle's continued development of the 29 corridor, which, while it has become a humongous road at sections, its traffic flow is much better now than it was several years ago, despite the fact that we're having increased travel. So I think Greene has the lower house prices. They do have the communities of Ruckersville, Standardsville. They've got differing kind of town centers, if you will, in which development and redevelopment can occur. You have a fair amount of development money that's already gone into those areas. So you have some of the infrastructure that can handle some of the larger communities. I think Louisa County has all of the right location.
Oh, yeah.
It's halfway between Richmond and Charlottesville, or not halfway, but it's between the two. And I think those communities are off of that one exit, 136 that are growing up certainly have the piece. But I think Green has a leg up and has a head start on that. I think when you get to areas like Fluvanna, they're a little bit farther off of 64, and they're a little bit more commute. I think it's
Mine's Zion's.
so same Louisa, that intersection,
Yeah.
and Fluvanna right at that intersection, right? But
Well, yeah. So I look at basically a 3-mile radius around the intersection of Zion. That's going to be the next growth, very similar to the reasons that you've kind of outlined. And I've, again, because of the different boards and commissions I sit on, I'm aware that there is about 400,000 gallons of water on its way to there, which
it's huge.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. Just to put it in perspective.
Here's the thing: is that you look in the city of Charlottesville, there are no large tracts of land left for redevelopment. So, any development you see in the city for residential is going to be either redevelopment of single lots or small acreage development, little cottage communities that are going to be on 8-acre parcel, 6-acre parcel type things at the maximum. When you get out into the county, Albemarle is in a very enviable position where they know that they already have a very strong reputation for school systems. They have a strong reputation for services.
And isn't 95% of the land undeveloped in Albemarle County?
That I don't know the number on that.
So
I
only
think it's 95%. 5%
correct.
is developed.
That's exactly. No. Only 5% of the county is what they call the urban ring. Right. So
okay.
the rest
Good
of
correction.
it is that. So the current urban ring is 5%, and I sit on a stakeholders committee for Albemarle County, and we're looking at affordable housing and how that can be looked at from a zoning perspective. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying. The city and Albemarle County really recognize they need to be actively engaged in this. So that's a good sign. But I agree with everything you're saying, Keith. So the old developer in me is kind of hat comes on this. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for infrastructure, right? I got 64-15, all right, there's infrastructure there. They're about ready to bring in water. Fluvanna County's bringing the backbone in, Louisa County, so there's a joint water authority going on with that. There's land.
And let's be honest, a Walmart and a Lowe's aren't going to open unless they're seeing it's going to turn into a hot spot.
So I got one better than that.
Okay.
VDOT is not going to spend the money it did to build a divergent diamond interchange,
Which is beautiful.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Which is designed to handle the flow of traffic of a traditional 4-leaf clover kind of intersection.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they built that, just for a comment on it, they didn't have the right-of-way to do a traditional, otherwise they would have.
That is better. It was good.
Yeah.
Your buddy Neil Williamson watching the
There you go,
program.
Neil.
We'll give some love to Mac Weems of State Farm. She's a new owner at State Farm. And Mike Bittrick of First Heritage Mortgage, one of his colleagues. Mike Buczynski is watching the program now.
If you need any insurance, those are the guys to go to. And if you need a mortgage, reach out, particularly in this new construction conversation we've been having. Mike Bittrick will knock it out of the ballpark for you.
Keith Davis, jump in here. Anywhere you want to go?
I think we've kind of hit on many of the hot ticket pieces where I think we were planning. I think your predictions question. Just looking at 2020, this is I think the counties that are willing and interested in having development occur are going to have to make it clear to developers that they're willing to do it in a timely manner. They're going to have to get out of their own way in many cases. And I think if land becomes available and it is clear that the counties want to do it, as I think has happened in the Zion's Crossroad area, you will find developers who want to work there. And I think there's always been the question of, do builders build what people want, or do people want what builders have built? And I think that is I think unfortunately, in the reality is a lot of times we buy what's available, not what we would want. There's, Robert Stern always said that the house that you buy is the one you hate the least. He's an architect out of New York, and
The
he
house
just
that you buy is the one you hate the least.
yeah,
I
because
like that.
keep in mind he's a very high-end architect who didn't think highly of the everyday product, and his point was if you had the time to build and the money to build what you wanted, would you ever buy what was available? And I think that's a good question. But builders here locally have been really strong in trying to implement exactly what customers are asking for, but the areas in which they're building is being dictated by public policy, not necessarily by the consumer-driven question.
Neil's got a comment for us.
Oh, sure.
In regards to the Albemarle County.
Mm-hmm.
Neil Williamson, who is brilliant with the Free Enterprise Forum. I would encourage anyone to check this out online.
Without a doubt.
Less than 5% of Albemarle County is designated growth area.
Mm-hmm.
This is a government-driven restriction on land available for homes. Please remember, Biscuit Run has been taken out of development. When will we ever get those 1,000 plus acres back?
You won't. So.
Yeah, it's a park now.
Neil knows that.
That's a good. He does know that. Of course, he
It's
knows
a
that.
park.
It's a rhetorical question. Yeah, Neil, that was a great comment.
Oh, well, he's always got an open invitation. One of these days he'll accept it. It's funny, my wife and I were talking earlier this morning and before we were coming on, and I truly believe this. I am so excited about 2020.
Me too.
It's just, about the real estate and business.
The economy.
I can't tell you the last time I was this pumped about it, and I think a lot of it is what we're doing. I enjoy this. This is with all due respect, with all seriousness, this is usually the best part of my week. So I thank you guys for joining up with us. But I turned the paper over, which is a sign.
Okay.
Which means you need to turn all that over.
Get ready, Keith Davis.
We're having quick minutes.
So the few minutes we have left, what we do at this part of the show is we just kind of ask a few questions. Don't think about it. It pops off the top of your head, and we just have a conversation.
And this portion of the program, thanks to Bill Tucker and Charlottesville Settlement Company, running the gauntlet.
And I love the heck out of Charlottesville Settlement and Bill Tucker. He's was on vacation remotely and helped us save a couple of deals while he was on vacation. So, you want to start, or you want me to start? Okay.
Keith Davis, are you ready?
Let's go.
Are you sure?
No.
Keith Davis, we're running the gauntlet here on Real Talk. What is your favorite restaurant in Charlottesville or Albemarle County, and why?
Tavola. I absolutely love Tavola. Tavola is, there are a bunch of things about Tavola that I adore. The food is fantastic. The roasted fennel, which if you can go into a restaurant and say that a roasted vegetable dish that's an appetizer is one of your favorites, I think you're starting somewhere. But they're on top of service. They're on top of their wine game. They're a great location. Love it.
Love their bar, too.
Yeah, and their bar is awesome.
So tomorrow is yours truly's birthday. And
congratulations.
Thank you.
I didn't know that.
Yep. And so you'll get a Facebook notice tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
50 years old. Happy 50.
Oh, I totally love you. I'm a lot closer to 60 than I am 50. Let's
It's
say.
the right first number, so we're all good.
Yeah. The first number was right. That's right. But Yonna was asking me, so what do you want to do for your birthday? And we're a bit of movie buffs, and since our oldest daughter is in the business, we're going to go see the 1917 movie, because apparently this is shot in a, Yasmina will correct me, a single shot. Basically, there's no cut, there's no nothing. It starts from the beginning of the story to the end of the story.
It's like Alfred Hitchcock's The Rope.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Nice.
So it has not been done like this for quite some time, so I'm excited about seeing it. But she asked me, where do you want to go for dinner? Tavola. Because we can't get reservations, doesn't matter.
She says you're catching up with me again.
Yeah. So there's a joke that we have. So it's about 3 months of every year that I'm not married to an older woman. So what piece of advice you've ever been given? Well, excuse me, I apologize. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given, and why?
What's the best advice I've ever been given?
And why?
Man. Wow. Now you definitely put me on the spot.
It's kind of built that way to do that.
Yeah. I guess go on this show, Keith.
That's a sizzle reel right
Is
there.
he good?
Yeah.
Is he good? It's funny
Davis.
because we had Vincent Zorn is our marketing coordinator, and he was on. We had a class in the middle of the week, and he asked, who is your number one music act? Right when it came to me,
Did you say Vincent Zorn?
I said Vincent Zorn.
Vincent Zorn is watching right now.
I actually, it's funny. Keith, I've
Nice
certainly-
kiss-ass move, by the
Thank
way.
you. I appreciate it. It bought me at least a minute to think
There you
about
go.
it. So
I know.
Well played.
No, it's funny. I think back to the year I graduated from college, and I was looking to get into development work. Was talking to some nonprofits in town, and there was a woman that was friends with my parents who I'd known my entire life, and she was a fundraiser by trade. That was her goal. And she said to me, Keith, she said, go into for-profit work, get a life in the business world, because you can always come back to nonprofit, and you can always make it a part of the passion side of your life while you do something else and build the other traits, because you can make that move and spend more time in nonprofit. And I think, honestly, as I've gone through different stages in my life, I find myself wanting to do more and more nonprofit, wanting to do more and more board time, but the experiences that I bring from the for-profit world plays into the nonprofit much better, and I think that would probably
You
be
should
the
have
one.
never said that.
That's a great stuff.
All right, you're going to recruit
No,
him.
because I can. No,
I'm
because
in
I can
recruit
always-
mode at the
yeah.
moment.
Yeah.
Vincent Zorn says, "Olay."
Oh, hey. He did a great show last night.
it's phenomenal.
Yeah, no. We went to.
Oh, a Bebedero?
Thank you for saying
At the
that. I
Bebedero.
screwed that up. Yeah, we went to watch them last night. Had a couple margaritas and headed home. You're next.
I love it. So we have seen firsthand the success of Nest. You guys are exploding. I love the brand. Give us a firsthand perspective of a challenge or a trial in building the company.
Well, I mean, I think, Nest, and thank you for the compliment, but, we started here 11 years ago in Charlottesville. We are now in 13 locations across the Mid-Atlantic. We'll announce a 14th site in the next 10 days or so. And, it has been an absolute joy and a pleasure to grow our business. I think our biggest challenge has been that what we've built in Charlottesville is so built around the local nature of who we are as people and who this is as a community, that being able to replicate that.
It's hard to scale that.
It is hard to scale. And I think we've done a great job. And when you go to our Asheville offices, the Asheville office, it feels like Asheville. It doesn't feel like Charlottesville. And our Wilmington offices in Carolina Beach and Wilmington, they feel, they are on spot for where they are and who they're serving, and what we do in terms of marketing is very much driven by our agents and other pieces. So, but it is definitely a challenge to try and grow something that has national reach, but also really maintains the roots and maintains multiple roots. It's a tough challenge, but it's been fun to do.
So I promised you I'd get you out here at 11:15. We got
Yep.
a little bit of time left.
About 40 seconds.
40 seconds. So it's a little bit of a trick question. So I'll give you that heads up on it. So you're stranded on a deserted island, right? And you're allowed to have one book with you. What would that book be?
So I'm going to answer with two different questions, because I think.
Oh, you're going to answer with a question.
He's gonna hedge. You're hedging
I'm
here.
going to give you two different answers. I think
You only got 30 seconds
That's
left.
fine. If you want, the favorite book that I've read, and one that I would ask anyone in real estate to read, is Andres Duane's The Rise of Sprawl and the Decline of the American Dream. And it's the Bible of how new urbanism came to be and what we need to do for development, and how cities need to rethink the development trend and what pieces are. But would that be something that I'd want to read over and over and over again? Probably not. I think for me, going through college, and this is the weird part of kind of how do you get to where you are. I was actually a religion major,
Really?
Undergrad.
Wow.
Religion and philosophy, and can I take the entire works of C.S. Lewis with me? Because that would be
That
that
works.
would be the pop. Yeah.
It's not what I was looking for, but it works.
Yeah.
So,
that's where I go.
so
'cause
it's
you
a
can
trick
read it,
question.
reread it,
You're on a
reread it.
deserted island, right? A survival manual would have been a good answer.
That would have been a good answer, but
So for me, it would have been the Marine Corps survival manual. So can I get one more question in?
We still have to take his photo, too.
Can I get one more question in?
one.
Georgia says classic Keith answer right
Yeah.
there.
Which one? The
Georgia Lindsay. Ray Cadell says this has been a great episode.
Thank you, Ray. So what skill or talent you do not currently possess that you wish you did? Skill, talent.
Honestly, it is the ability to create and visualize graphic things that are amazing. So
Wow.
at Nest, we have this phenomenal team of creative people. And they will tell you, it's a running joke in my office that I want to be the graphic designer, and I'm awful at all of it. But it's one of those things that I don't understand how they are as good as they are at it. And it's one of those awe moments. So they do a great job.
So I did a little research on that question. Almost 100% of the folks, a little over 90%, say that they wish they could play a musical instrument, which is mine. And so I'll give another shout out.
I'm so far from being, like, my musical talent is so far from being able to play instruments that I can't even logically
Well, I'm a
jump to that.
I'm a professional listener,
Yeah.
but I will give another shout out to Vincent. When we finished watching him play, I leaned over to him before I walked out, and I'm smart enough to know when I'm watching a master at his craft or her craft. And that's something I always wish I could do. I wish I could had that talent to do that. But Keith, I ran you over by 1 minute.
Georgia says
Perfect.
all of them.
Thanks, Georgia.
All right, guys, this is what we're going to do with today's program. A lot of agents watching, and we're going to wrap here in 15 seconds. We will archive the show on ilovecville.com. We will turn it into an iTunes podcast by close of business today. For the next 30 days, we will syndicate it across the I Love CVille Network, 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, the third largest Instagram in the community, and an e-newsletter that goes out every morning at 11 a.m. to about 120,000 inboxes. I'm Jerry Miller. He's Keith Smith. He's Keith Davis. This is Real Talk, powered by the Yes Team. Take care.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
Good work?
Yeah.
Hey, Jerry, you're a natural.
Great being here.
Good work. We got to take, it was fun. We got to take a hero